When it comes to airtightness, there's many different methods to which we have to learn to take and tape and achieve a really good airtightness with different products and different way that we may need to operate. So one of the methods I use is when it comes to penetrations, if we were to have a wall where we have a penetration, this is a 300mm deep, thick panel that we have here. And we're going to put the penetration through. It's very, very easy. The standard way of doing a penetration is drill both sides and we can put the pipe right the way through. Excellent. But how do we achieve airtightness around that? Now, usually when you get a standard piece of 4-inch pipe, that would go in, and you can get a rubber grommet to go around that and you just tape that on. Or you can even get a pre-made top hat, as we call it, so it'll slide over, you can tape to the pipe, and you can tape to the intello, or what other airtightness material that you may be using. The downside to that is quite often when it comes to ducting and penetrations, they're not a standard size. So how do we deal with that? We can't buy a pre-made top hat. We can't get a rubber gasket to go around that because they just don't fit. So I make one. I make my own top hat. It's very easy. Now, I use the same process regardless of size of the penetration or where it is. Quite often when we're doing the groundworks, we bring a penetration through the membrane. We bring penetrations through walls. Anything from 25mm to 300mm, we can bring anywhere through any penetration. But I use the same method to accomplish good air tightness or gas tightness or whatever it is we need by making my own top hat. And if you make it, you can make it any size you like. So if there's a collar, a bend, or something just that isn't a standard size, you can make it to fit. Very easy. Now, it helps if you actually have something to which you're going to make it helps to have a piece of material that you're making the top hat for, regardless of size. Doesn't matter what we use here as a demo, because it's going to be the same process, whether it's 300mm wide, 25mm wide. It's going to be exactly the same process. All we use is some offcuts of intello or the airtightness membrane that you're using. Don't forget to use the correct materials for the correct tape. So if you're using a different material for your airtightness, you may be using another tape, but the process will be the same. And if you're doing underground for gas, don't forget to use the materials for that membrane. If whatever membrane you're going on to, use the same types of materials. All I've done is I've cut myself a piece of intello wrapped around the pipe, and I've taped it so it's tight. Now again, this could be any size pipe, could be 300mm wide. And I have done it on 300mm pipes, and I've had a perfect result every time. I've never had it fail with this method, is why I use it. Once I've cut that, you can cut it any length you like. I often make these very long, 3-4 foot, even 1500mm wide, because that's the length of the thing. And I cut it into different sizes or to different lengths. So once I'm done that, I get a straight edge and Stanley knife, and I cut fins into the bottom, like so. Then what that does, I do that all the way through. Then that creates these fins that you can fold up. It's quite easy. Then you put it over your piece of pipe. Fold it out. And I turn it upside down, and I bring the fins out. So what I've got is I've actually fanned out those fins. Then with your offcut, I've marked the circle or the size of this pipe or the penetration to which you're using, and I cut that out. Slide that over the top. So cut it very slightly bigger so it fits over. You can see we've already established the shape to which we're going to use. All we have to do then is tape it. Cut myself some sections of tape. Peel the back off. Remember the tape, it likes to stick to everything, not just the materials. So try and keep a little bit of backing on so you can hold it, doesn't stick to your fingers. And also, that'll help it folding up on itself. Once this folds up onto itself and it's stuck, don't try and undo it. Throw it away, use another piece. And then all I do is I would stick that, pushing it down onto the base, pull the backing off, stick that round. Do that again. The next section. Push it around. Once that's done all the way around, you've actually got a really good seal on that. But once that's done all the way around, we can flip it over, and the fins that we've got here, I repeat the process but in the other way. So take it, one piece of tape, and I stick it to the inside. You fold it over. So what that does is that then we've doubled up our tape. We've got to tape that side, we've got to tape that side. Once this is done, there's no way air is going to escape through that. But here's one that we did earlier. So as you can see, we've taped all the way around the outside on the top, and we've taped all the way around the bottom for our fins. So what we've got is we've got a complete airtight seal here. Now, once your top hat's been made, it doesn't have to be this exact size. You can still trim the sides if it needs to fit in somewhere. You can cut it to length. So you can tape around the pipe, which is what we're going to do. But I'm not going to cut it to length first. What I'm going to do is going to put that on the pipe. It's a little bit tight, but it doesn't matter. As long as it goes on without ripping. You measure it. Here we go. You can see how strong that is. I've just done that, and there's no holes formed, or this tape's not separated. So then we can put our penetrator through. Bearing in mind the penetration may already be there. Then, when we've got our penetration, we can trim this. To where we need it to be. We can trim that back here, we can trim it back there. Now the advantage with this is if in the future we need to replace this piece of pipe or whether it could be a flue or something like that, if it needs replacing, we don't actually have to rip the whole thing out. All we would do is cut the membrane behind the tape once it's been stuck to the pipe. Like so, cut round behind this, that will slide out, you will slide a new one in and re-tape it without doing the whole process. But then, of course, once that's in position, we can then take that in position. Right. Now, I have done this, I don't know how many dozens and dozens of times over the years. Various different materials, various different sizes, and I've never had a fail using this process. So, if for any reason you have a collar or a pipe or a duct, whatever it may be, that's an odd size, or you can't get something manufactured to go over it, or you just prefer to do it this way other than going through the expense of buying stuff, this is a good method. And as you can see, that pipe is still flexible if you needed it to be. And all you do is tape around that, and then in the future, if you want to replace it, just cut it off. Failing that, you've actually got a really good airtight penetration. And they're simple, takes a few minutes, and a little bit of attention to detail, and it will work 100% of airtightness, 100% of the time, if you just follow the basics. And next week we're making KCI lights, and we're going to have all the little bits out of here, and we're going to make lots of models.
Yeah, good stuff, John. Let me just ask a few questions just to talk about some of the details.
Yes.
So, for example, with this pipe here, you was discussing taking the Tescon tape inside, not, I think you said inside the pipe, but I just want to clarify, that's not inside the pipe.
Yeah. No, because we don't want to stick to the pipe, which is what I've done there. Yeah. Fortunately. Now this tape has been on there, it's on there by 2 mil. And that tape's gone off enough so I can't pull it up. It goes how they're saved. Obviously, conditions are really good for it to that.
It's a good practical example of the tape, bro.
How it cures, yeah. It can be. It depends on what it sticks onto. So what I do is I don't usually actually go on the inside. Probably a bit big, this one. What I tend to do that's because I haven't taped the other side. I tend to bring it up a bit, tape that down, and then fold it on the inside afterwards. And then you can make sure it goes over the pipe, and then you've got the pipe to fit that nice and square into. Yeah. But normally you would always do this one first, and that will hold it in position for you. Yeah. Just to save time.
So that gives you a real practical example of how important it is to get those details.
It seems so
right.
always goes back to the same thing with airtightness, and that is detail. A little bit of attention to detail, and making sure that you get it right first time if you can. If you don't get it right first time, all it means is you've learned another process to how to get over. So if something fails, you have to get over that. And that's another learning process. Every time you have to do something, it's another learning process. So don't be scared of failure, but try and make attention to detail to get the pass right first time.
Yeah, I noticed that you said one of the pieces of tape there were a bit too long. I just thought it's worth just fleshing out why it's important that we don't get it too long.
Well, what I've done... Right. The idea is if you cut a piece too long, I tend to cut them 2.5 inches, 60, 70 mil long, no more. If you do too much, when you take the backing off that and try and stretch it round, you're stretching the tape because you're trying to achieve too much at a time. You're actually best to do smaller and more of them, and you'll get a better result. Because when you push this in, you push it down first and then you move it into the pipe. And then you can rub round and make sure you've got really good air tightness there. And then when your next one goes on, you will lap over that and then overlap and overlap until you've been all the way around the pipe.
And it looks like the sequencing of how you apply that tape is really important. Just getting that contact on the first part of the tape, getting it nice and snug up to the soil pipe, if it is a soil pipe, the pipe, and then just having a small amount just attach.
Absolutely. So the idea is to get this nice and tight into the corners and a really good seal over each other. It's that seal and how it sticks together is most important. And we can repeat this process over and over again. Once the whole job is done, if you wish, like I have on this one, we confirm it by putting a piece of tape round and sticking that all around the bottom. Hold that all into the pipe. And that's also a really good way that if we've made this a little bit big, which sometimes I do on purpose because it makes it a little bit easier. Once I do this piece around the bottom, it gives me an opportunity to pull it in tight, especially if I'm doing it onto a penetration that's already there.
Yeah, I did notice that as you were doing it, how important it is just to have that little bit of give in the cut, because once you start applying the tape, it does narrow it up. So you're going to have quite a tight opening.
Absolutely.
If you go too close.
Yes, if you don't cut this big enough, always go a little bit bigger. Give yourself a bit of play, because as you build the layers of pieces of tape up, it gets thicker and thicker and thicker. So therefore, you want really this effect. So it's just got a little bit of a bite on, but it could be looser, because if it's too loose, you're going to form creases. But if it's not loose enough, you're not going to get pipely. So it's just a bit of practice, really, because that was how I would seal that. And that would hold that constantly there. And if this is a little big, you can always knit this up, close that off, and tape over the top. It's best to be a little bit big than a little bit too tight. It's always best to have that little bit. Now, this goes back to when we were doing the airtightness on the panel. If there's a crease, and we spoke about how we would fold that crease out and put a piece of tape in, this is the same process. We're actually creating the crease ourselves. So what we'd be able to do is tape the inside, and make that really airtight.
Excellent. So one of the questions that I considered was, how different is this if you've got a penetration that's already there? And, from a practical point of view, what sort of challenges might that throw up?
If you have penetrations already there, like you would do with potentially a retrofit, you're going to have this retrofit situation. if it's already there and you haven't got an end to slide it on, what I would do is I'd use exactly the same process. I would make the piece the size of the pipe, and before I tape this, I would cut all my fins, and then I'd make one of these to go over the top and tape it. Even though you won't slide it on, you can make this, cut it, push it over, then you can tape that. And then I'd still make this the same with all the slits, all those fins, push it on, and I would tape those fins to the backing. And then I'd run a piece of tape through the top like that here. You'd still we've done a number of these on Retrofit, and we still get a really good result.
So just to make sure that I'm understanding that correctly, you make the top hat as you have there today, but then you cut up a section down so you can wrap.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that.
Yeah. I mean, you could even, once you've done this, another demonstration of the tape that I've left a little older stuck, you could even make these, cut it.
Yeah, let's do it as we talk.
Made it.
Yeah.
But you can actually make the top hat.
Yeah.
Cut it. Wrap it around the pipe. And then repair. You still get a really good result.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I can imagine that the result will be just as good when you've got that airtight.
A bit more attention.
Yeah.
Simply because you're actually creating an area that you've got to repair.
Yeah.
But that area that you're repairing is just that one area, not repairing a whole mass. You're just replacing that one area that you've done the cut.
Yeah. Yeah, thank you for that, John. I suppose it just underlines airtightness in general. This is a real skill, and it's just practice, and just building up a bit of the nuances as you go through it. But we've given people there a real taste of the details of what they need to consider.
Yes, yeah. Do take this method in consideration if you can't get something pre-made to fit. I have used this on many different sizes and areas, and a number of different membranes, and I've always had a good result. So that's why I stick to it. It simply works for me. But that little bit of attention for detail must be put into it. Take an extra 2 minutes to do it, because it could save an absolute fortune and